Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're back again. We had a very good session of networking. I found to see a lot of people very happy to meet each other. So we're getting now into the session 2, which is we had Mr. Lee get us excited about a little bit. So let's see where this goes. I think, do you have the clicker? Which one is it?
This one.
This one?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So we'll do the question.
Yeah, we'll start with the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So, good morning again. Do we have everyone coming back? Ah, okay. Let's do it.
So, ready? Getting your energy back in the room. Yalla, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, everyone, for that. So, welcome back again. I hope you had a good break. Now, this is me getting into the proper presentation for what I've come here to do today. Now, we spoke a little bit this morning about how you can actually create your customer experience strategy. What if I told you that using AI can help you increase your user retention by an extra 10%? Would you do it? So in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to share a bit with you about that. Now, before we go into that, we had a question up on the screen today that we asked a bit earlier on. Jessam's trying to sort that out. While we do that, I want to share with you a couple of stories in terms of how we actually arrived at using AI to create a customer experience of the future. We've always heard about the term big data. Then we heard about the term data analytics. Right now, artificial intelligence is the next big thing, right? You hear about this in the news, in the media, in the scientific research that you read, in all of the trade papers that you actually go through. So why is AI such a big deal? Now, before we go into that, I think Jessam's still trying to get the screen up. But let me share with you something that's very close to me. Now, as part of the Gartner's research team, I have to cover certain technology verticals. For my part, I speak to a lot of vendors who are dealing with digital commerce, digital payments, and also the NLP, natural language processing technologies, what we like to call conversational platforms. This is an assumption that was made actually at the end of last year in 2017. The studies and the facts base that we had pointed to the fact that all these new applications that are being created, be it on the enterprise, on the consumer side, were increasingly incorporating conversational technologies into it. So conversational agents could be your chatbots, could be your virtual customer assistants, could be virtual personal assistants. And we predict that 40% of all global users will be actually using some form of conversational AI or conversational technologies to interact with applications. Now, why is this important? Artificial intelligence cuts across many, many different kinds of technologies. The reason why the conversational technologies are very easy to adopt and we see a big rise of is because of the fact that, again, this actually goes to our question from earlier today. In the user experience, at that touch point, conversational interfaces actually lowers the friction for a user to learn how to use an application, to use that service as well. I'll give you an example. We're all young people here. For our elderly parents or grandparents, those who cannot see so well to type on a screen, or those who can't type properly on a keyboard, a conversational interface actually allows them to just say what they want to get the service that they want from the particular provider. So conversational interfaces, in this case alone, opens up the opportunity to new target audiences, new users for your service. That's just one simple way of looking at it. I think we're going to skip that question on AI. Actually, the question earlier on was how many organizations right now are actually thinking about planning AI, who are actually running AI projects, who just have no plans at all. So later on, when we see the results, we can share it. But let me move on. Today, we talk about three things. Where is that artificial intelligence in customer experience? Is everything artificial intelligence? Not really, but we'll share with you where artificial intelligence is actually injected into that customer experience that you enjoy every day. The next part is, how do I apply this? How do I start thinking about artificial intelligence in customer experience? I'll provide you a very simple sense, think, and do framework to help you evaluate this. And then finally, I'll share with you how to create the customer experience of the future. Now, I think we got the screens coming up now. So this poll question is up there for you to respond to right now. From the members in the audience sitting here right now, in terms of those who are looking at artificial intelligence, how many are planning to experiment with it? How many organizations are currently running an AI project or have delivered an AI technology? And this is the frightening one. How many organizations have no plans at all? Let's see the numbers.
Just to remind you, you can go to slido.com using your mobile, and the code is 333, and then you can get to answer this question for the people who just came in.
Okay, so that's pretty good. Look, I'm looking at the one in the middle, currently running an AI project. In this room alone, about 30% of the organizations are actually running an AI project already. Now, we did a study in Gartner, and we spoke to all the CIOs at the end of 2017. And guess the number of big enterprises that are actually deploying or running an AI project right now? You'll be shocked. The answer is actually 4%. So only 4% of the enterprises that we spoke to actually have or actually running some form of AI technology in their enterprise. But the good news is this. Only 4% are running it, but a further 21% are planning to run an AI-based project in the next 12 months. So just by comparison, this room is way ahead in terms of AI maturity. Now, I want to come back to our three key topics here. The last one that I'll leave you with today is, how do you actually create this customer experience of the future? We shared with you the 5 steps. We're going into more details in the last section in terms of how do we actually create this customer experience. Now, as IT leaders, business leaders here, you've probably met someone like Jane. We spoke about the customer experience leaders just now. Jane is the head of customer experience in a mid-sized technology provider firm. She's enthusiastic. She wants to create the best possible customer experience that she can for the customers that they serve. Now, she thinks that there are problems in 3 main areas, like I said just now. Sales. How do I convert more people to using my product? Customer service. How do I make people happier when I'm dealing with their complaints or their feedback or they're looking for information? And then 3, in marketing, how do I actually market to our customers better? So those are the 3 main areas that Jane would want to solve. And you as an IT leader, you as a business leader, how would you actually support someone like her? Would you give her advice that looks like this? But before we go into how we're going to support Jane as well, I want to share with you something about the cool parts of artificial intelligence. Now, you've seen Amelia, the nice talking robot outside. I want to share with you what happens when computers try to teach us how to walk. Hang on a second. You play this? Oops. Well, unfortunately, there's a bit of technical issues with the video. The link is still there. When you download the presentation, you can look at it. What it actually is an animation of how Google DeepMind actually trains a two-legged figure on how to walk, jump, and run. Now, this particular deep learning engine wasn't given information on how humans actually walk. It wasn't shown any videos. It wasn't given any other sort of training except for two objectives. The two-legged figure needs to get from point A to point B, and it can only do so on the points of support that it has. So essentially, Google taught a digital figure how to walk. So this is the stage that we're at now with artificial intelligence. There's a lot of fear, a lot of hype. Will artificial intelligence take over my jobs? I can tell you right now the answer is no. We are very far away from artificial general intelligence. What we hear about in the media that speaks about computers or machines that can actually take over where humans are, can actually come up with ideas or imagine better scenarios than humans can. Right now, that's not happening. So even though we think AI is really cool, they're not about to take over our world yet. Now, again, in artificial intelligence, what are the three key defining characteristics? For the ones who are non-technical here, I always use three criteria. True artificial intelligence needs to be able to learn. It needs to be able to learn how to do the same process or same outcome better each time. That's artificial intelligence. Then the next part about artificial intelligence is it needs to be able to predict. There's no point having all this great data, there's no point having all this great computing power if that technology that you create cannot predict what's about to happen. And the last part, the third part, learn, predict. The last part is surprise. But it's a good surprise. What artificial intelligence technologies give to you is the ability to surprise the human user. If it's true AI, and it's something that you can think about, then there's a very simple test. It is not truly artificial intelligence because you just thought about it. These machines need to be able to help extract unthought of insights or unthought of scenarios that we previously never considered or just couldn't consider. So the three characteristics of AI: learn, predict, surprise, okay? Now, AI technologies cut across a wide swath of technologies. When we talk about AI, it's a collection for terms like machine learning, deep neural networks, conversational technologies like natural language processing, natural language understanding, real-time translation. You have computer vision, you have facial object recognition, and you have all these different great sets of technologies that fall under the umbrella of AI. So if there's nothing else you take out of this presentation today, next time your friend says AI, you go like, which kind of AI? Because that's a key question that you need to ask in terms of the presentation that you're about to see next. This is how you can use particular AI technologies to improve your customer experience. Before we go into that, there are also myths and stories around artificial intelligence. One of the key parts, and I think everyone likes a good story, right? Myth number one: you as an organization, you can buy an AI to solve your problem. There's no such thing. You're buying a technology solution. If somebody goes, I have an AI that can solve your business problem, you kick him out the door, all right? The AI technologies that you see are a collection of different technical skills in order to drive a business outcome. Typically, organizations will have to use a series of different vendors and group them together, combine them together in order to drive that final business outcome as well. So you can't buy an AI to solve the problem. You can probably get the right technology vendor to help you solve the problem. Myth number two: everyone needs a chief AI officer. Actually, no, they don't. We just need smart CIOs and IT leaders like yourself that understand what AI technologies are. Because right now, there is no clear way in terms of approaching what AI as the broad term is. You're actually picking the right technologies that help you in your business. So don't worry yet, there's no new position called Chief AI Officer. Myth number 3, artificial intelligence is real. We spoke about that just now. Artificial general intelligence, the scary kind that you see in all these Hollywood movies, is not here yet. And it's probably not going to be here for many good years to come. Now, the part about artificial intelligence being real is actually the talk of all these marketers in these technology companies telling you, hey, my AI is the best, my AI is more accurate, my AI is faster. Now, I want you to be able to go away and push back and interrogate in terms of what kind of questions you ask them. This is an even funnier one. AI technologies set their own goals. Actually, no, they don't. Humans set goals. The technologies that you use in AI actually helps execute them as well. Again, if you say AI technologies can actually do your business for you, then either you or the AI needs to be fired. Then the last one, artificial intelligence has human characteristics. We as humans, we're very social animals, right? And we always like to put human characteristics on everything. The thing about when you speak to the Amelia robot outside and you think, ooh, it looks really human. Actually, it isn't. It's mimicking what a human should be like. It's very far away from actually exhibiting human characteristics. This is the softer side of things. Can that robot care, sympathize, empathize? No, not yet. But the robot can respond to a given set of inputs that you give it. So, ladies and gentlemen, AI isn't truly human yet. But having said that, let's throw away all the myths. What are the top cases? We asked our Gartner research circle members, again, in the beginning of this year, where are you going to use artificial intelligence in your company? And a lot of them are saying, number 1, customer engagement applications, in the call center to service and support, and in digital marketing platforms as well. This top 3 actually all just say, I'm actually planning to work on my customer experience. So this is what the Gartner research members, the big enterprises within our client base are actually looking for. We spoke a lot about the customer journey earlier today. And the customer journey always goes through a cycle as well. From the beginning, where you start inspiring them, it's always an orchestra and orchestration of all the different functions within your organization. Sales, marketing, IT, customer service. They make the customers aware of your product. They make the customers prefer your product. Finally, to getting them to buying your product. And then the next phase of their life starts. The customer ownership cycle begins here. Now, if they really like your product, if you delivered them a consistent, great customer experience all the time, they'll probably buy again. And then the cycle starts all over. But if they actually choose to abandon you, that's a huge problem. So how do we keep them in this life cycle with artificial intelligence technologies? So what would someone like Jane do? How do you help that person? We suggest to you, use the sense, think, and do framework. Now, this goes back to the early days of how Gartner actually advises its clients as well. Before we actually deploy new technology, there are a couple of things that we want to do. On the sense part of things, we want you to actually find out what's actually happening on ground. What are customers actually thinking? If you remember the earlier presentation, this is the part of understanding what the customer insights are, what the customer actions and reactions are to your product or service. Number 2, the think. The think is about putting sense, making sense out of all this data that you've collected. How do you extract meaningful relationships out of it? How do you take phenomenon or how do you extract patterns out of the data that you've collected? Once you've done that, then you use that AI technology to actually do. How does that technology actually help you automate certain tasks? How does it help you scale your business to greater heights? So sense, think, and do. And all this is, as I said, a constant learning process as well. Anyone who deploys an AI project and expects a return the next day is just fooling himself. AI technology-based projects need time to learn in order to be able to build up the value that it has to the organization. So sense, think, and do. And we go into the next phase here. This number becomes very, very scary for me. 95% of all the digital data right now that we have in the world about consumers actually comes from unstructured data. What do you mean by unstructured data? When you send a survey form out to your clients and they go, this is my name, this is my address, that's structured data. That's how you know what customers think about you. This other 95%, this big world out there of data exists in your social media channels, your emails, phone calls to your customer service center, all these different places that you're not looking at or not collecting them from. It could also be what your sales staff are saying at your stores or your outlets about customers' reactions to your product. How do you collect all this? 95% of this data is unstructured. We believe by 2025, the whole world will generate 163 zettabytes of data, of digital data. That's 1 followed by 23 zeros. 163 zettabytes of data. How do you possibly churn all of this? Can you humanly do it? So we jump into how Jane, or how someone like Jane will actually sense the world in order to apply the correct AI technologies into it. So a good example here is this. When you use AI, use it to deepen your customer understanding. You deepen your customers' needs, your customers' wants as well. In using artificial intelligence, again, don't think about it in a single dimension. We spoke about machine learning. We spoke about natural language processing. We spoke about computer vision. We spoke about decision augmentation. All these are different types of AI technologies that you can put into your arsenal right now to understand more about the customers that you're dealing with. Now, to give you an example here, in terms of how you can understand the voice of your customer more efficiently and more effectively. We spoke about this example about this US carrier. They speak to 700,000 consumers in a month. Now let's do some simple math here. I'm an average human being. I can probably process 50 unstructured data items in an hour. So let's say I work 8 hours a day. In order for me to process 1 million items, will take me 7 years. So this US carrier actually analyzes 700,000 of these post-call surveys via digital formats. They do this in a month. They do this on a monthly basis. Over a year, that's 3.5 million. So if I was the one who had to do it, it would take me 22 years to go through this carrier's post-call surveys alone. Now, this, mind you, is only one channel that this US carrier is actually using to find out what customers think. So this does not include their sales feedback, their marketing feedback, all these different areas. Now, one thing that's also common here is about thinking automated analytics versus manual analytics. Let's talk about the bad stuff first. If I was that same human being who had to process this, given that we are looking at minimum wage, it will probably cost about $150,000 for me to read 1 million items of data. $150,000 just to read 1 million items of data. And number two, in reading those 1 million items of data, do you think I will make mistakes? Yes, I will. So human analysts of all this data have to manually code and categorize all this information as well. While it might be great in an economy where you're trying to boost employment and let's get some people to read the survey results. It is impossible for them to always code this correctly. So the number one thing was cost. The second thing that comes out of this is accuracy. Humans make mistakes. It's hard to categorize. It's hard to code all this. And then finally, it's about actionability. This US carrier collects 700,000 surveys a month. If I take 1 year, or 7 years, sorry, to go through what they collect in a month, any kind of insights that I give them will be completely useless because it's 7 years old. So the timeliness and actionability of it is critical. The 3 main points: cost, accuracy, and the timeliness of this data. So what does this organization do? In that previous slide, we spoke about that US carrier. The US carrier was actually Verizon, and they actually use a conversational chatbot, a natural language generation technology in order to help them mine the data that they collected from these surveys. It enabled them to go through that 700,000 surveys in a matter of seconds and prompting a report that enables them to respond to those customer surveys in almost real time. Well, it still takes a couple of seconds. But now the marketing manager, the product manager, the customer service manager all have insights in order to take to the market as well. And that is just because of natural language generation technologies provided by an AI vendor. So how do you actually sense all this data? If you were in sales, I will use conversational analytics, text analytics, to actually mine this customer data that we have. It could be in email, it could be in social media, it could be on Instagram feed. All these digital channels are actually great for and suitable for mining as well. Now, when you do capture that data, how do you improve your data quality as well? This is where machine learning kicks in. You assign it certain algorithms to learn what are the key outcomes that you want to drive as well. And this data quality will improve, but it takes time. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is not an overnight thing. Artificial intelligence technologies take time in order for them to build up value to the organization. And in customer services, how do you actually look at the data for insights? I'd like to give this example here. This was a conversation I had with a CIO of the largest merchant bank in Philippines. And he's very proud. He's saying, Adrian, we are launching a conversational voice-enabled chatbot for customer service. I'm like, fantastic. What do you want it to do? He goes, we want to cut the number of human agents in our call center, and we want to save the company money. I said, that's fantastic. But where are you getting this data from? Where are you getting the customer insights from to feed this chatbot? And he goes, oh, don't worry. I have 15 years worth of data. I'm like, 15 years? Yes, I have 15 years worth of call center recordings that I'm going to feed this chatbot. I'm going like, how do you have a job? This data has to be processed, has to be digitized, has to be cleaned up, has to be actually structured, and then has to be categorized before it can feed into that chatbot to provide the customer service. The other big problem this Filipino bank CIO had, the customer service scripts, FAQs, and answers were all over the place. So this was actually not a problem about AI technologies. This was more a problem of the CIO, not understanding what kind of rich data insights he can get from existing customer data. So that's a story to take home. Please, if you say to any of your AI technology vendor that you want to launch a product, make sure that your data is clean and processed. Now, when we talk about basic points for starting any kind of machine learning, you want to ensure that on each particular customer, you have at least 10 or 20 different data points on that customer alone as a basic hygiene factor. So having just one customer call recording on one client is one data point. From that, you can extract further meanings from the interactions, from the text, from the phrases, from the speech that we use. That's how you enrich a data pool that you have. Now for marketing as well, a lot of marketers still operate by their gut. They work with media agencies. They buy spots on billboards, on TV channels, on radios, and they buy with digital agencies print ads that they can, display ads that they can share on digital channels as well. But how much does the marketing leader within the organization know about the customer? Where is it getting its data from? Normally, it's getting from fragmented sources. So how do you aggregate all this data in order to help the marketing leader? So that was a bit in terms of how you can use artificial intelligence to kind of sense the world around you. Now you have all this data. Now you have all these insights. What will you do with it? There are great tools. This is an example from Salesforce as well. The artificial intelligence that's built into a typical platform like this helps to explain, guide, and recommend to your salespeople what should their next action be. Now, very typically, these dashboards do two things. They provide predictive analytics. Predictive analytics means what will happen next. Okay? So this dashboard actually tells the salesperson which are the leads that are about to close, win, lose, or they should have to renew. It tells them what's about to happen next. The great platforms do prescriptive analytics, where it tells people what should they do once they know what happens next as well. Again, platforms like this enable the salesperson to see, for a particular client, this is a predicted win rate, and this is the opportunity that you should actually pursue from that particular account as well. So what this does is, if you are actually helping out your sales functional heads or your sales team, this removes the time that they have, this reduces the time that they have to actually go and learn about the client before they meet them. This frees them to actually engage with the customer to actually sell more efficiently as well. So this is one point of what predictive and prescriptive analytics that can be derived from artificial intelligence. Now, following that same example, this is where Salesforce actually helped another US bank increase their conversion rates as well. When you have platforms like this, like what we mentioned earlier, this is part of the operational voice of customer. All these insights are actually sent to every sector, every function within your organization. How they actually helped this bank was the same customer insights were actually sent to the frontline bank tellers. So when the customer walks to the bank teller, they automatically can pull out their last interaction, what their transactions have been, what their preferences are like. That is giving them a great customer experience. And what this also means is that the customer walks away with a more satisfying experience and normally will rate them much higher as well. This actually increased their conversion rate for new loans, new accounts, new credit card openings by 2.34 times, which is massive if you think about it. So, when we talk about sensing the world, gathering the data, the next part about it is think, and how this artificial intelligence will actually help these service providers increase their sales and retention. In this sales example, we show you the Salesforce platform that helps you predict the outcomes and recommend the best actions as well. That same platform also helps to give you the white space analysis. The salesperson doesn't have to sit there and figure out where he needs to go next. The dashboard actually does that with the history that it collects from the company and the customers itself. And then this is one key function that a lot of the sales guys like. It generates instant sales presentations. Why? Because you have to report on your performance as well. Gone are the days of spending hours and hours on creating a sales report so you can actually talk to you can actually show this to the bosses. We're moving into the world of how technologies can help us do things. And this is a favorite question that I ask a lot of people as well, is that if everyone has a favorite book and you realize the author was a robot, would you still like it? This goes back to that question about email campaigns as well. Now, if anyone reads the financial reports on Wall Street Journal, Business Times, all these financial reports right now are increasingly being written by robot writers. If you found out that financial report was written by a robot writer, would you trust it? Would you put your money on it? So the day is coming where artificial intelligence will actually help you automate a lot of these tasks as well. And one of the key things that we found out, again, at the end of last year in 2017, is we actually interviewed Gartner marketing leaders globally. And a lot of them were saying, 57% of them were actually saying, yes, we are happy to let artificial intelligence generate content for us. So this goes back to the example that I spoke about earlier today as well. Companies are using NLP vendors to generate entire emails for their marketing campaigns, not just the header, okay? Not just dear Mr. or dear Miss so-and-so. They are creating entire email body content. And what they can do is frightening because they can do it at such great scale that it totally removes the need for any human writers at all. Now, to give you an example here, Associated Press, prior to using Pasado, which is an NLP vendor, can generate about 300 financial reports in a year. 300 financial reports in a year. After they started using this NLP vendor, Pasado, they actually managed to increase those financial reports by up to 3,000 reports in a month. And those financial reports were rated by their customers as it's accurate. I can't tell if a human wrote it or a robot wrote it. And these are financial reports that follow a fairly standard format as well. So the technology is getting to the point where you don't have to worry about sitting down and thinking how I should personalize for different customer segments. There are vendors that are able to do this right now with their text mining, their text analytics, and also their natural language generation technologies. So Gartner marketing leaders, automatic content generation, this is basically 57% of marketers saying, we'll let someone else do our job, okay? So, in order to round this up as well, what can AI actually do for the marketing teams? Optimizing email and social media campaigns. Think about it. Content optimization and generation. This is what we spoke about just now. Is that it's not just it's moving beyond personalizing for names. It's now personalizing the entire message for an individual customer. Think about it. To give you an example, Alibaba Group, the very famous digital commerce platform, currently has 550 million active annual users. That's 500 million. And it has email communications with all those 550 million active users. From its own data bank platform, it's able to generate personalized emails for the entire base of users. Now, if you guys are familiar with scale, natural language generation, the amount of computing power and storage and the ability to distribute is mind-blowing. Hence, they've created companies like Alibaba Cloud to do that provision for them. They've created a platform called Alimama, which is a digital marketing platform to process that customer data. So that is a scale that these Chinese companies are actually moving to. And one of my favorite stories is this, because Gartner covers a lot about how Amazon versus Alibaba, and my bet is with this Chinese company, because of the scale that they have and the amount of customer insights. So they now know 500 million people, what they buy, where they live, what they spend, how to communicate with them. And this is just an example of how it can help marketing deliver better marketing campaigns. It helps brands deliver better customer experiences as well. One of the key parts about this example to go with is that Alibaba is busy signing up international brands, brands that want to enter into the Chinese market. So this might be a great way to tap into that database. And yeah, the part we shouldn't forget, it also reduces the needs for human writers. So any of you who have kids who want to be a writer, just need to take note of this. Now we're going to come to the part that interests me the most, because I cover a lot of conversational agents, a lot of conversational platform vendors as well. We did this survey at the end of January in 2018. We asked enterprises in US, UK, China, India, and Germany what they think or how they view artificial intelligence technologies. And this particular question was this: they actually think, 54% actually think artificial intelligence in customer service is better than a human. These are companies responding to this. Now, in 2015, that same number was actually 5%. So it's grown more than tenfold in the last 3 years. The confidence level that we have about conversational technologies is actually improving tremendously as well. Now, one point to note here. You hear the term chatbots a lot. There are different types of chatbots, number one, and there are different levels of chatbot implementation as well. The one thing that I have to raise here is this. No chatbot is going to replace humans completely. That's the good news. And for the foreseeable future as well, in terms of how chatbots are being brought to market, the most successful ones are the ones who are narrow and specific. The biggest problems that face a lot of conversational AI projects is you try to overbake every single feature, every single answer into that chatbot. That inevitably causes it to fail. So keep it narrow, keep it specific. You need it to be just smart enough to do that job as well. So one example is this. I always like to tell people about 5 levels of conversational agent. Starting at the very bottom are those bots. Simple programs that talk machine to machine. The next level up is text-based chatbots. You text, you message someone, and those are great in a narrow specific domain, like customer service. How can I help you? What's broken with your product? One level up is a virtual customer assistant, where you can go in and say, I want to buy certain things. Can you show me different colors? That's a virtual customer assistant. One level up on top of that is a virtual employee assistant. How do you help your internal staff in order to learn more about a product or a process or a service delivery that you want to do? Now, at the very top of that pyramid, bots, chatbots, virtual customer assistants, virtual employee assistants. At the very top of this, no surprise, is the virtual personal assistants. You have heard of them. Alexa, Siri, Cortana. Actually, there's one sitting outside in the little robot, Amelia from IPsoft. Now, the reason why those virtual personal assistants appear more intelligent is not because the technology is magical. It's because Amazon, Microsoft, and Google Assistant, I forgot them, they actually aggregate a lot of these individual skills that are being contributed by developers. They are intelligent because of the database of skills that they have. All right? Now, which is more important for you here is that you not only need to build the technology, but you also need to build the ecosystem that drives that understanding. So that's why Amazon Alexa is smart. It's got 15,000 developers, each of them contributing new skills to that conversational platform. And that is the strength of the ecosystem they have. So we spoke about Amelia from IPsoft. This is actually a great example. Swedbank, SEB from Sweden, actually implemented Amelia as a conversational agent, as a customer service chatbot for their banking service. Now what they did is that they realized banks, what are the most common customer service requests? It was simply, help me reset my password on digital banking. So where they implemented this chatbot was very easy. They actually simplified the whole process of resetting the password, and they actually fed it to the chatbot so they can do this automatically as well. What Swedbank then did with IPsoft was they tested this out internally first with their bank employees. They made it handle up to about 4,000 inquiries in a week over a period of 20 days just to make sure that the technology works, that it answers the question, that it actually sets the reset password, the time taken to reset a password from 20 minutes to less than 4 minutes. They tested it internally. Once they were happy, then they launched it to their customers as well. So this is a process called dog fooding. You eat your own dog food. They make their own internal employees test their products to make sure that it's successful before they launch it out to the external market. So this is a great example of what a virtual customer assistant looks like. my pet project here is working with the Singapore Smart Nations Project Office. So this was actually another virtual assistant called Judy, done by a Singaporean company called Tiger. And what Tiger actually created for the Singapore HDB, the Housing Development Board. HDB in Singapore provides public housings for close to 80% of Singaporeans. They serve about 1 million apartments to 3.6 million Singaporeans. And the most common questions, again, from the virtual assistant sites, you can see them visualized here quite well. It's about buying, selling a house, how to get a loan, how do you actually plan for all this forms registration and whatnot. So this virtual assistant went live already in December 2016. The success only came early this year in 2018. It's now handling up to 18,000 inquiries on a monthly basis. And guess what? User satisfaction is at 78%. Their comments verbatim are, this assistant is easy to use. It gives me the answers I'm looking for. And that's how smart your chatbot should be. 68% deflection rate. Close to 70% of the customers who actually went to the website did not eventually have to call a human call agent. Think about the number of man-hours saving that represents. So this is what chatbots can do for you. This is what conversational agents are. And this is some of the examples of the benchmarking that you should be looking at. Now, one good criteria for deciding whether you want to launch a chatbot is a very simple one. Think about the number of conversations your organization has on a daily basis with all your customers across all channels. If that number exceeds more than 1 million conversations a month, you should try to launch a chatbot to help you reduce that load. Okay? This is how AI technologies can help you automate and scale the response that you have in order to improve customer experience. So why are virtual customer assistants so powerful? Just to summarize, it allows you to engage your users across multiple channels: SMS, app, website. As long as it's a digital channel, your virtual conversational agent can step in. Now, you want to move engagements with your users to less expensive self-service channels. Again, remember what I said earlier on. The younger generations like the process of discovering on their own, like the process of solving their own problems. Let this conversational agent assist them in that process. And then you want to reduce the time to response. The pet peeve, the top number one pet peeve for customer service calls is the amount of time that you have to wait before you get a response. With a chatbot, it eliminates that issue as well. And finally, and last but not least, is also reducing the cost to serve. Most large organizations maintain heavy number of headcount in their customer call service centers. How do you actually move that down? How do you actually then transfer those same staff to different functions within the organization? I'm not saying fire them, but how do you transfer them into different parts of the organization? So how do you reduce that cost to serve? So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the last part. If there's nothing you remember from this last 2 slides you really want to pay attention to. How do you create the customer experience of the future? Not too different from what we saw earlier on. Number 1, begin with understanding the customer experiences. Earlier today, we shared the tools that you can use to map out that customer journey. We show you how you can collect this customer insights and data from. The next thing I want you to look at is focus on areas with clear business outcomes. It cannot be a vanity project for your organization. There's no sense in putting AI technologies into your organization just because it's cool. It's cool is not a business outcome, okay? Number 3, look at how you can do targeted proof of concepts and trials as well. At this point in time, as I said, the artificial intelligence technologies that we encounter are constantly improving, constantly innovating and maturing. Your strategy necessarily will include multiple vendors. Please do not bet your entire business on one vendor right now. you have to be able to have a plan B and exit if you need to. So your strategy will include multiple vendors. So think about targeted POCs and trials with those different vendors. Can they each build small pieces of this customer user experience or customer experience? Look at small gains through AI. Remember what I said? Artificial intelligence takes time to become intelligent. So you're not going to necessarily get huge, monumental return on investments from day one. Look at small incremental gains. You want to track and measure the success. And finally, for somebody like Jane, she needs to balance expectations from the CEO and the CMO. What does AI technologies in customer experience projects actually mean? All right? So ladies and gentlemen, if for nothing else, within the next 3 months, these are the steps that you take away. Document the strong and weak points of it. We actually spoke about your customer journey mapping earlier on today. What works within your organization? What doesn't work? Think very clearly about what helps your business to differentiate itself from its competitors. And if you say price, then I can't help you. It's about the customer experience. Select 2 functional areas in order to apply this AI technology. We spoke about 3 key ones here today. We spoke about sales, marketing, and customer service. Depending on which area needs more help, select one of those functional areas to prioritize for your AI projects. Number 3, start with simple business problems. Your objective could be as simple as, I want to reduce customer waiting time from X minutes to Y minutes. That's a business outcome. It's very simple, and where the cumulative effects are of that can be felt further on down the road as well. And build a business case. Ask me later in terms of how you can actually build a business case to initiate one of these proof of concepts within your company or within your organization as well. Set up the metrics very intelligently. You don't want to wait 12 months before you show a return. So how do you actually set up quick win metrics? This is how quickly I can get it to market. This is how quickly I can get it to serve so many people. Remember, those are easy metrics to hit, and they're also great in order to demonstrate the validity and strength of your project. And then in 12 months, when you're successful, you expand this strategy to more complex business scenarios, and you send an email to me and say, this is how great we've done. So, ladies and gentlemen, with AI technologies, now is the time for experimentation. Now is the time for proofs of concept. There's no such thing as a best practice because everyone's learning on this journey together with you. They're only emerging practices. So with that, I thank you. And if you want further research, you can check these research articles out. Thank you very much.
So we have a number of questions that came up. We have a chance to maybe have those questions.
Can we see those questions?
In what sector does AI matters most and why?
In what sectors does AI matter most? The simple answer is in every single sector. All right? In every vertical that we've spoken to right now, artificial intelligence vendors have actually gone in providing different things. So you could be in real estate, and there could be conversational vendors building chatbots for you. There could be data analytics, decision augmentation AI guys, mining that data for better real estate sales. So AI essentially is the lifeblood and foundation for all new digital businesses. So that's the simple answer. AI affects everyone, but to different degrees.
There's a question says, please talk about non-profit organizations and drones and maybe customer experience, and maybe, do you have any examples of non-profit organizations using these latest technologies?
I personally haven't seen them, so I can't really answer to that. But at the end of the day, a donor is pretty much a customer of the organization's values, missions, and causes as well. So their customer experience also needs to undergo the same level of thinking that you've seen here. Yeah.
What is the pain points, areas after implementing AI?
Oh, I can tell you this one. Now, typically what happens with organizations who implement new AI technologies in their organization, number one, denial, because it actually impacts a lot of organizations as well. When you're telling a call center agent, hey, you know what, you're pretty much out of a job because we have a chatbot that can do what you do now. A lot of people don't like that, they're uncomfortable with it. So that's the pain, anger, and denial. The second part that you normally see with AI is impatience. Senior management wants to see business results. And very often, the leaders of all this AI-based customer experience projects don't know how to manage that. They kind of go, yeah, if we do this, we'll see returns immediately. And they overpromise, underdeliver, and that's a typical management problem that we help our enterprises solve as well. And then finally, revelation. The third part is a lot of organizations then go, hey, you know what? This AI vendor doesn't do what it promised to do. So we actually training a lot of enterprises to understand what is the hype. We're giving them the correct language, the correct technical understanding, so that you don't pick the wrong vendor. So you know how to select the correct vendor as well. So there's a lot of research that will help them do that.
Good.
Yeah.
So we have a break for prayer, inshallah, and we'll be back in about 20 minutes from now, if everything is okay. Good. So we'll have a himmatic clap. You wait, as someone is very excited about it. Yalla, 1, 2, 3. Amazing, you're getting better and better, mashallah. Yalla, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.